Hey there! Have you ever wondered which hand embroidery stitches you absolutely need to know to get started? Well, you're in luck! In this video, I'm sharing a collection of 12 essential stitches that will kickstart your hand embroidery journey. These are the stitches I found most useful through my own experience and from teaching many students. First, let me explain how I have organized these 12 stitches. They are divided into two main categories: primary stitches and supplementary stitches. The primary stitches are the basic ones you'll use not just in embroidery but in general stitching as well. Also, they have been used in some of the traditional embroideries around the world for ages. The supplementary stitches add extra flair and decoration to your work. Many of the supplementary stitches have become more popular recently with the rise of modern embroidery. Beyond that, these stitches can be categorized based on their purpose, like outlines and fillings, or by their nature, such as linear stitches or isolated stitches. In this video, I'll walk you through each technique, explaining where they're most useful and discuss the different categories they fall into. If you're eager to dive deeper, learn how to handle corners, join stitches seamlessly, or practice with some patterns, be sure to check out my printable ebook, Hand Embroidery for Beginners, on my website. This book will have all the 12 stitches in detail, along with 10 printable patterns for you to practice them on. The link is in the description below. These stitches have been carefully selected to serve as your foundation, each representing a different family of hand embroidery. Let's get started and unlock the world of hand embroidery together. So let's begin. I will show you the 6 primary stitches first. In the primary stitches list, the first one we'll cover is the running stitch. This is probably the very first stitch you learn once you've got the hang of holding a needle. It's a fundamental stitch used in hand sewing to hold layers of fabric together or to gather fabric. The running stitch is perfect for quick outlines, fillings, and can be used in slow stitching. It's also a key stitch in traditional embroidery styles like sashiko from Japan and kantha work from India, as well as in pattern darning. To do the running stitch, start at one end of your stitch line and pass the needle in and out of the fabric to create the stitches. You can vary the stitch lengths to suit your project. Typically, you will want to show more stitch on the top than the gaps, so aim for longer stitches than the gaps. You can use the stab method or the sew method for the stitch, and it follows curves beautifully. The next stitch is the back stitch, which uses more thread than the running stitch, but is a very stable and strong one in hand sewing. In hand embroidery, this stitch is great to make outlines and small fillings. It is a linear stitch, which means it starts from one end and is worked in a line towards the other end. Start by making a single stitch, and then you would go in a backward motion to fill the gap and continue the process. Any guess why it is called the back stitch? This stitch can take curves and corners very well. The back stitch has emerged as one of the most popular outline stitches, especially in modern embroidery, replacing the stem stitch that once used to be one of the favorite outline stitches. The third stitch in the primary stitches list is the stem stitch, a versatile and elegant technique perfect for outlining and even filling in designs. To start, make a single stitch along the stitch line. Then bring the needle back up through the middle of the first stitch. Make sure to keep the stitches to the left as you emerge from the right. This crucial step sets the stem stitch apart from its close cousin, the outline stitch. The result is a smooth, continuous line, ideal for creating seamless outlines. In the world of hand sewing, the stem stitch closely resembles the whip stitch, commonly used for closing open edges. The blanket stitch is used to secure edges. It is often confused with the buttonhole stitch, which is sturdier and used to secure edges of buttonholes. Traditionally, tailors would use the buttonhole stitch to sew the edges of buttonholes. In contrast, blanket stitch is used to secure the edges of blankets or fabric with raw edges. So it is excellent for applique work. Now, apart from just being a popular edging stitch, the blanket stitch can be great for fillings too. It can also get pretty decorative if you vary the lengths of the teeth of the stitch. That is the vertical part of the stitch. So use it to create borders and any thick outlines. It is a looped linear stitch. You will work between two stitch lines and loop the thread under the needle each time to create the stitch. This stitch is very popular with crazy quilters and slow stitchers too. Next up on our stitch adventure is the herringbone stitch, one of the oldest and most versatile stitches in the embroidery world. This classic stitch serves as the cornerstone for a multitude of rich traditional techniques found globally. Whether you're diving into kutch work, mirage work, mirror work, or shadow work, the herringbone stitch and its many variations are your go-to for creating stunning textured patterns in a flash. Not only does it lay a fantastic foundation for layering different types of weaving, but its evolution over time has led to some truly beautiful adaptations. And guess what? It's just as at home in needlepoint as it is in other forms of embroidery. In hand sewing, the herringbone stitch is known as a catch stitch and is perfect for joining two pieces of fabric with precision. The herringbone stitch is a linear stitch and is worked between two lines. The last stitch on our list is the cross stitch, a true classic that's just as stunning in surface embroidery as it is in traditional cross stitching. Often, beginners start with this versatile stitch, which involves filling a pattern one cross at a time. In surface embroidery, the cross stitch shines both as a standalone design and as a part of intricate patterns or fillings. It's often the gateway to more advanced needlepoint techniques. But that's not all. Cross stitch isn't just for decoration. It can also be used to join pieces of fabric together or to reinforce the edges of thicker materials, similar to the herringbone stitch. Whether you're arranging it in a neat grid or scattering it for textured effects, the cross stitch is as easy as it is versatile. Now we will look at a list of supplementary stitches. These stitches are some of the most popular and loved stitches in hand embroidery. The first in the list of supplementary stitches is the chain stitch, one of the oldest known stitches widely used among various cultures from Asia to Europe. It is also one of the basic looped stitches that any beginner should know. This stitch is looped and linear. The chain stitch can make great prominent outlines and is excellent in filling patterns. The widespread use of the stitch can be seen in Kashmiri numdas, Iranian resht work, Central Asian Sazani, and Hungarian embroidery form, which is known as written embroidery, Jacobean embroidery, and crewel work. It is also the basic stitch of the chain stitch family that has the most number of variation of stitches. So if you know this stitch, you already have the base for many others. Lazy Daisy is a super easy stitch that is used to make quick, pretty flowers and leaves. When in doubt, Lazy Daisy can come to rescue often. If you want to fill a gap in a big pattern, the chances are that you might use a few Lazy Daisy flowers. It is a single chain stitch, and I chose to put it in one of the 12 basic stitches because an embroiderer cannot survive without using this stitch. I will say it is a lazy embroiderer's friend. As simple as it sounds, it is not limited to making just flowers and leaves. It can assist in many advanced and modern embroidery work too. While the chain stitch places the loops vertically, Lazy Daisy gives us a way to place them horizontally and make fillings similar to scales. It also can add texture to an area by scattering them randomly. The next one in the supplementary stitch list is the satin stitch. The satin stitch can require a bit of practice to perfect. No embroidery list is complete without this solid filling stitch. A few tricks can help to make the stitching more comfortable. The first one is to try outlining the pattern with a straight stitch like the stem stitch or the back stitch, and then start working the satin stitch. This helps in keeping the edges neat. However, this is just an option. If the pattern has broad and tapering parts, start from the broader end and work towards the tapering end. The next tip would be, if the pattern has a broad and tapering part, start from the broader end and work towards the tapering end. Sometimes it is also good to keep the stitches slanted than straight. You can begin by working from the center of the pattern, work one side, and then work the other side, like how I'm showing in the video. The fourth stitch in the list is the French knots. These knots are an essential in hand embroidery and superb to create textures and visual effects. Knot stitches that require the thread to wrap around the needle can be tricky. A few tips will help you deal with it. The first one would be to use a milliner's needle, because it has the same shaft thickness throughout, making the passing of the needle through the wraps easily. Use it if you have one, but this is not necessary. The second tip would be to not wrap the thread too tight or too loose, but just snug enough to ensure that the eye of your needle passes smoothly through it. It might take a few tryings, but be patient. My third tip would be to wrap the thread no more than 3 times around the needle. If you want a thicker knot, use more strands of the thread instead of more number of wraps. And my fourth tip and last tip to make a French knot would be to not pass the needle back in through the same stitch point that you came out from, but near it. This ensures your knot does not fall through the fabric to the other side when you pull the needle out. Okay, the fifth stitch in the supplementary stitches list is the feather stitch. It's a beautiful stitch to make quick plant-like patterns. It is excellent for creating borders and can be jazzed up when combined with other smaller stitches, beads or gems. This technique can be used for fillings too. It can provide textures to leaf patterns. Feather stitch is apparent in crazy quilting along with other embellishments. The cretonne stitches also fall under the feather stitch family. These stitches and its variants can be used to make open decorative seams. They can work well over even weave fabric too. It is represented in smocking as well, making it a very versatile stitch. The last stitch of the list is the woven wheel that has gained a lot of popularity with the spurt in modern embroidery. It makes a relatively hassle-free flower by weaving the thread around an odd number of spokes. Luxurious-looking roses with dimensions can be made fast. Add a few French knots to the center and it can look pretty neat. Small woven wheels can make tight roses that can be used on fabric for everyday use and wash. Bigger roses work better on hoop embroideries, which are never taken for laundry and only used for decorative purposes. This stitch has made its way into the basic 12 stitches, as it is definitely modern and consumes less time, but it is also very attractive and helps you understand the woven stitches to try on other variations. I hope this video has helped you to master these 12 essential hand embroidery stitches. If you're eager to take your skills further, don't miss out on the ebook for in-depth tips and guidance. Just click on the link given below. Your support means the world to us, so please leave a like. Share this with anyone passionate about hand embroidery and drop a comment to let us know how you're doing. You can also join us as a patron with a link below. Thanks so much for watching and happy stitching!